Hello all and welcome to our Express GA4 workshop and some of our lunchtime learning. We're really excited to have you all here, and hopefully today we can try and cover as many of your GA4 questions. A little bit of housekeeping before we do get into it. Obviously we have very little time and it is a pretty heavy topic. If we can, and it's a big if, we will try and do a tiny little Q&A at the end. But there is actually a Q&A feature button in the bottom right hand corner. If you see where there's like a triangle, a square and a circle, just submit your questions in there. If we don't have the time to get through it today, then we will answer directly. We'll send you an email with the answer to your question. So please do use that tool. We won't kind of do interruptions during the presentation, just so that we can kind of get through the content. Hopefully it will also cover some of those questions that you have too. As I've mentioned, the session is recorded, so you will be able to catch up on all of the content at a later time, and we will send this to you automatically, so there's no additional action needed there. Given that it is recorded, please do keep your mic turned off so we can make it through the session as smoothly as possible. We would love for you to engage during the session, so feel free to actually share some emojis which you can use in the middle of your screen. There we go, Joray and Harriet just showing us how to do it. There's a little smiley face in the bottom in the center of the screen, and so you can interact and engage with the content in that way. Before we get started, actually, I kind of want to get a measure on where people are at with GA4. So if you could just kind of let us know in the chat right now kind of where you're at with GA4. Are you starting from zero? Have you already started the migration process? Are you setting yourself up? Are you already actively using it? It would be great to understand kind of why you're here and what you would like to learn a little bit more about. So as you do that, I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce who's going to be kind of in this workshop today. So I'm Noemi, I'm head of marketing at Viaduct Generation. For those of you who are unfamiliar with who we are, what we do, we're a mission-led SEO agency supporting underrepresented founders and their allies to rank in search. I'm joined today by the wonderful Freya Jones, who is very much our expert here. She is a digital ad specialist, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, a certified Google geek. So we're bringing to you this Express workshop as the impending G-Day, as Freya likes to call it, is soon going to be upon us. We're hoping that you can come away with a clear plan of action and feeling a bit more settled about it. Again, if not, please do feel free to get in touch at the end of this. We won't be able to get into a super high level of detail given the amount of time that we have, and also given that GA4, the platform will look quite different depending on the business that you have, the metrics that you're looking at as well. What we will be covering though today is why there's been the changeover to GA4, the main differences between GA4 and Universal, preparing for it, and then some top tips once you're on that platform. So let's get straight into it. First of all, what is GA4? Now, this might sound like a really obvious question, but I do think it's important that we start here and we understand exactly the need for this change. It's a pretty simple answer. It's essentially the next generation or an evolution from Universal Analytics, and it collects event-based data from both website and apps, which are both, this kind of detail is actually quite important, and I'm going to tell you why now. So why the change to GA4? I'm going to now hand it over to Freya to explain to you in a bit more detail why these changes have been made. So Freya, please take it away.
Hi everybody. So I am Freya, just as a little introduction, and hi everyone. So the reason why we have GA4 is we had obviously Universal that came out in 2012. And this was that platform for business owners and marketers to just see how many people were kind of filtering through their website. And what people realized when they kind of got into 2015 is that marketing is investment. And we really needed to now look at marketing attribution. We needed to look at user journey. We also needed to look at what people did whilst we were on our website, and everyone kind of got aggressively obsessed with bounce rates. So you would hear dinner tables where business owners would be like, oh, my bounce rate's 60%, and someone else would be like, it's 80%. And people still didn't really kind of get what those metrics meant, but it was almost like an internal battle against business owners on who can have the best bounce. And then people had the ability that we had Urchin, or like the kind of like Universal, and then we had Firebase, which then clashed with each other because people couldn't figure out how people went from mobile desktop to apps and then to look at that data. And we had different analytical platforms that then came out to then match attribution and kind of go through how you could track user journeys. And this is really where GA4 kind of thought, the marketing hemisphere has evolved so much where we now have 30 channels as a marketing manager that you can pick from. And how do we now track the data in between that? The other option as well is that GA kind of realized is that people were using supermetrics. They were using Dash This and other data-led platforms to amalgamate all their data together. And what GA4 is kind of wanted to bring everyone back to a general consensus platform. We also have GDPR and we have the Caliphatian law as well, which meant that we were looking into too closely into user intent data, and this is obviously where GA4 came into, so we could go into protecting IP addresses and that type of level. And then this is the really cool aspect of it, is GA4 is like a user-led platform. So we'll go into this later, but people can actually go through and request that their data is removed from your collection, which means that your numbers would drop. But this is where machine learning comes in, because it will pick up lookalike signals and it will start to anticipate your data and make predictions on what your ideal Dave and Sue are doing. And it will kind of help you try and figure out what you want to do next in terms of your marketing messages. And then our last part here is the combination of area. So when we have Universal, it's very session based. So let's just say you're in the Middle East, for example, and you're observing Ramadan and you're looking at websites during the night and it hits 12 p.m, the session essentially wipes. It's like the Cinderella hour, and you'll get re-hit again. This is where you would have a look at your data and kind of, you'd see that there'll be multiple sessions and multiple variations. And a lot of the complaints we get at BG is, I've migrated, and now when I look at GA4 data, my data doesn't marry up. And the reason why is because old Google Analytics works on sessions and GA4 works on actual physical hits and user intent. So this is where you can actually look at user journeys and figure out your true people and what they do whilst they're on your website. And this is where then you can lead into IDA methods. So really looking at your investment and having a look at, does SEO do the awareness, the identify, but does Snapchat kind of help that baton pass into selling and prospecting in terms of e-commerce and conversion-led goals?
Brilliant. Okay, so now that we understand maybe a little better as to why Google has kind of pushed for these changes, we're now going to explore the differences between the two platforms and what you'll essentially need to take into consideration when coming into GA4. So our main differences, take it away, Freya.
So our main differences, we've kind of touched on this, but we have this area. So if you can drop an emoji, how many people have tracked conversions or tracked form fills on their site currently. If you give me a little emoji bop or a little kind of clap from that side, we have, yay, perfect. So we have this option here, and this is where you can go back and report on ROI and ROAS. Now, Universal does that, and it kind of did it in a way have a thank you page, and you'd have to have these catalysts in place. When we move over to GA4, we now have a lot more within our picnic basket, where we can track scroll depth, we can track video starts, video stops, and that's automatically done, so you don't need to tag all of that up. But we now can track user events and what they do. So I have a PhD in clinical psychology, so I love looking at people starting to fill in forms and not completing, and how can you then remarket to them, or how you can then send them an abandoned email cart reminder. But in GA4, it works on what those users are doing, so you can be more intentful in your marketing instead of just sending out a message assuming that everyone's in that same bucket. We also have here the area. So what's really cool about GA4 is that machine learning capability. So within GA4, it's a kind of a known fact, but you have to dig into the data. So your data is in that warehouse for 14 months, and then it gets deleted. So when you're looking at GA4, and you're also looking at the ability that users now can delete their own data as well, with that caveat in place, any missing discrepancies in terms of your data, this is where that machine learning tool will come through and go, based on historical actions, this is what we think these users have done because they did that previously on Snapchat, they did that previously on Pinterest, and it starts predicting data for you so that you can then make more savvy decisions. We also have here the actions. So when you looked at Universal Analytics and you looked at users and sessions, and then you looked at events, you were trying to marry up the data to be like, okay, we had 2,000 people come through, but then we had 6,000 sessions. So it means out of those 2,000 people, they came into my website 3 times or 2x times. But we then have a look at the conversions. It's very difficult to like marry up that user flow. And when we now look at GA4, we know that they will be triggered on clicks. They'll be triggered on mouse actions. So reporting, we can 95% guarantee that that was an intentful action. So you can report on those numbers a lot, essentially a lot more clearer in terms of that. We also have here the areas. So when you look at Universal and you look at GA4, the look and feel of it is very much the same. So I saw from the chat that we had a couple of people that have already migrated across. But when we look at GA4, this is where we really do integrate all of that data. So you can then have a look at how different marketing channels assist conversions. You can also have a look at, essentially the kind of the flow of data coming through, and then exporting that data so you can then use that to help you manage budgets. And then this is the last, or the second to last option of here, is this integrating it into Google Ads. So obviously when we have a look at this, you have your Google Ads and your Google Search Console. So if you have those linked, they will transfer all that information across. But what this has an improved connection, you can now set conversions as your goal. And you can then run performance max Google AdWords campaigns to an actual desired end goal, and work on kind of value-based bidding in Google AdWords. So allow the system to use its artificial intelligence to help you bid more intelligently, and have a look to ensure that you're GDPR compliant, and have a look at your different accolades, as long as you're in the right industry and the right kind of components to have that Google AdWords support within your mechanism. And then we have here obviously the ability that this is the big change, is when you go through your user journey. So if we look here at SEO, for example, you might be in a taxi and you might Google a phrase like, how do I do X? X and you read a really informative blog. But let's just say you've read that blog and you're still thinking about that option. So it's very much brand awareness, top of mind, and you're thinking, okay, I've kind of answered this, but I want to go and see if there's any good testimonials. And you go and have a look at your desktop. Could you want to go and have a look at returns, for example, or have a look at like, known, and trust factors? What this does is, because of an autonomous IP tracking, it then goes like, Naomi came in on her phone and now she's coming in her desktop. She's the same person. So we're going to track that as one entity and track her through. When you looked at it in Universal, it would hit this engine as two people. But let's say Naomi like downloads a PDF or schedules a call on desktop, it will just show that desktop is the top converting platform. So if you ever did any UX changes, you would do desktop first. But now we have this better integration to look at full device journeys. You can say that this is the journey in terms of this, like, so we need to have live chat enabled. We need to ensure that we look at scroll depth, and you actually get to see a full user kind of essentially like lookbook of what that person did and why they did what they did. And then our last bit here is just looking at reports. This is obviously where I kind of really flourish into kind of my level of geekiness and just nerdiness, because I am like the captain of nerds, is looking at like kind of the mapping of pages and looking at user journeys and why people do what they do. And this is where you can then design your own dashboards. So obviously you can download everything in Universal and have that, you know, kind of there where you can look at demographical data and geofencing data. But this is where you look at GA4 and you can customize reports. You can set up alerts, set up insights that will benchmark you against your competitors. So you can really do see, like, do I need to invest in more blogging? Do I need to invest in more Pinterest kind of pins, for example, because that's how wedding planners select their content. And it gives you more ideas that you can then say, okay, I now have this information, so I'm going to make these decisions based on that data that I have.
Amazing. So we've now kind of established the differences between the two platforms, which I think actually then links really well into how do we prepare for GA4. So let's take a look at that next. Back to you, Freya.
Thank you. So GA4, so it's a common kind of giggle, I like to call it, where, you know, like, when's G-Day going to go down? What's going to happen? When we had 2012, where we had Universal, we got 3 years where Google allowed us to kind of do, like, you know, do our own data purge, kind of go through this. I don't want to say that I expect the same, but our kind of sunset of information is kind of getting pushed and pushed back, pushed forward. So what I kind of want to take is our key takeaway of downloading your data. So if you are a VG client, we have the ability that we can use a Google Sheet with a plugin to start transferring your information across. Because GA4 won't store your data forever, every 14 months that data will get deleted and it will disappear. If you have that in place, it'll automatically start pulling that data for you. You can also use BigQuery if you're a bit of a tech geek like myself, and I can take you through that, but it's a lot easier for me to do it in your offices, so I can save it to your server, as well as you can do the traditional download as an Excel and just save it on your PC or Apple Mac. But that way as well, unfortunately, there isn't an option of like clicking, going, saying like download all data, which, you know, when you think that would be really sensible, you have to go and download each individual view and each individual report layout. So if you're used to Supermetrics, it's just a drag and drop. But any questions like that, just fire it over to us and we can then send you the best route based on the business that you have, the type of kind of information that you have across. We also then have your coding. So I got into Google Tag Manager just because I'm impatient. So I'm one of those, I don't know if anyone watched Finding Nemo, but you know, the girl that shakes a fish, I am her. So I was like, I'm just going to learn how to do it myself and learn through practice. And this is where you have a look at your coding and you have a look at your areas. So this is where you can kind of sit with a specialist like ourselves, and we can go through your website and track, you know, video starts. But if you want to track buttons and where's the best placement, you know, for, you know, add to cart, save as a wish list, we can go through that with you and kind of hunt through your website, because everyone's UX is different, and maybe a 50% scroll depth is where you have a picture of yourself and you don't really need to track that, but we can go through that. And then the other area here is going through your KPIs. So when you look at UX, we're not really going to have the same metrics to report on. So if you have any scary bosses that want to know about bounce rates, they want to know about sessions, this is where we have to kind of go across and say, the landscape has changed when we look at GA4. And these are our new metrics that we have available to us because they are data streams, and we now have user concentric data. It's very different to report on users because we don't have new users anymore. We just have users. And this is where you have to dig through that data and find out the real intent of what they want to see and why. Also, another property that we have is that GA4 doesn't really work very well with Shopify at the moment. It's like an impetuous child. So this is where we have to kind of go through and look at that from a Google tagging point of view and add an additional tag so we can still support your ROI goals. And then looking here at your attribution. So looking at last click, multi-touch attribution. So this is where we would have a look at your marketing plans for the end of the year, seeing how many channels you're picking, and then have a look at UTMs. So you still have to use UTMs. And what we'll do is create, I like to call it like a Bible of this is your UTM structure and this is how everything works in terms of URLs. So we can then still ensure that if GA4 has a meltdown, that you still track all of that data going through, because they change everything week by week.
Amazing. So I mean, I'm already looking at the time. I'm like, wow, time flies when we're having fun with Google. But at this stage, we've kind of done the prep work. So the natural next step, obviously, is to kind of get into the platform and get involved. Ahead of that, we obviously want to share some top tips that you should take under consideration as you start using the new platform. And Freya's going to go through these now.
Amazing. So the first tip is download your data. Just please download your data and have a look at it. If you're a seasonal based business, I typically look at the last 12 to 18 months of your kind of user journeys and your sessions that you have across, but download this for you. Understand also how you digest data. So are you graph based or are you number based in terms of pivots? But have access to that data. There's a wonderful slide that shows our king and Ozzy Osbourne in terms of his like user demographical data of that they're both X, Y, and Z. But I would want you to note down trends in terms of your users. So are they typically male based? What ages are they from? Where are they in terms of location? So you can create an avatar. Because when we move to GA4, you're going to have to dig a little bit harder to kind of go through that information. But if you have that enabled now, if you ever do Facebook ads or you do anything, you have that in your back pocket. So you can start using that going into Q3 and Q4, which hilariously is when Black Friday is and when the big shopping festivals are, where you would need to have interest-led data. So identify that. And also just remind yourself that GA4's data is going to disappear. So if you look at your data and you start seeing numbers decrease, It's just because of the purges happening, and having a look at when you can then download that data for yourself and have access to that. So then we have here conversions. So this is where you look through your website and look through every single accolade that you would want an event to be tracked. So if you have a hero image that has 5 sliders, you know, you might want to track different call to actions, but you might want to label them as different call to actions. It might be color or label or action based, but just so you track that. Also have a look at Facebook. So Facebook has CAPI, which is a sophisticated machine learning acquisition that it has from that side. So ensure that everything that you have labeled up on Facebook then converts into your GA4 setup. And test it as well. So GA4 has a debug menu where you can go through and test all of these options and ensure that you're getting recorded by your own IP address. Pro tip is that if in Universal you've blocked your own IP address, when you then look at it in debug, this is where the numbers are going to be whatever that word is, different or discrepancy in terms of your numbers, because you won't be able to see the same number of trigger hits. And then here would be like kind of custom events for your business. So if your business is seasonal, if your business is triggered by PR, you want to then have a look at essentially what that means in terms of time on site. So if you're looking at more of awareness-led campaigns or blogs, for example, or you have a subdomain, so blog.org.com, how do you track cross-domain tracking and users coming across in terms of URL string? So have a look at that. And then the last bit here is behavior. So this is where if you are in e-commerce and you are in that field, a lot of people are under the illusion, especially of flights, is that if you look for them on a Tuesday, you'll get a really big discount on a Friday. Or if you get pushed from an email, you will then kind of unlock some kind of caveat. So have a look at your users, what they're doing currently in Universal, to try and see what their buyer intent is and what their keyword psychology is. So then you can use that in future campaigns. And then here is that essentially, I haven't seen this in action, but this is where users have the consent. So in GA4, you can grant consent for users to delete their own metrics and delete their own options. So they might have bought a high commodity kind of product from your site, or Googled something, if you're a doctor, for example, that they wouldn't want everyone to know. They can go and delete that information, and that information can be stored. So when you then look at users, you might report 1,000, but let's just say you look back at Q3 and then it drops to 800. This assumed it would be the deletion of data. I don't know how it goes down, but it would be like if you go to a website and they say, do you accept cookies? I'm assuming it would be the same idea where it will say, do you want your data to be deleted ever? And you would have to go through that infrastructure and change. And then this is it. It's just having a look at the kind of routes that you have. So your marketing channels, and having a look at how you track all of that data coming across. So this is where if you have Facebook, for example, Facebook's really cool because it has obviously clicks and then you have link clicks. So when we look at agency results, we see a lot of people report on clicks, but this is banner clicks, not actually clicks to your site. So this is where you'd have to look at all of that data source, and is everything reporting with the same morphology and areas that you can then break down and make your reporting life easier. And then here is just using machine learning insights to help you optimize your site. So enable this so it can give you insights in terms of competitors. So you can then see trends in terms of, you know, SEO generates you higher interest in terms of blog content and downloadable PDFs. But if you enable this, you get these alerts emailed to you, which if anyone in your organization is like hunger data and they always ask, so what does that mean? If you have this enabled, it gives that to you. And just don't panic. Like, I think that's the biggest thing to say about this is, look, I'm not an expert. And I think when we look at GA4, there isn't an expert there. And if you do find one, tag me so I can go and like take them out. But like, it's just, this is where you have to kind of go through, look at tutorials and play with the tool, because every interface is different based on the data that you look at. And this is where machine learning comes into it, because it says like Francesco loves looking at this, so I'm going to keep on showing them this. So this is where you have to just play around with the tool. And I would say with anything, if you Finding Dory, like shake it until you break it, because the best way to figure out is what data works for you and how you can then best use that to make your business grow.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Freya. I think you've summarized that last bit really well. And it's something that we do really want to emphasize. There's obviously a lot of new things with GA4 on this platform. And as you have probably seen, since, you know, Google have spoken about GA4, there's been so many updates, loads of changes. So it's a really flexible thing, which makes it quite empowering as well as marketers, because it means that we get that kind of opportunity for the feedback loop and to, you know, better use the platform. And I think it's an opportunity as well to kind of better inform our marketing activities by centering around like user and user behavior. It also kind of gives us an opportunity as marketers to revise the metrics and KPIs that we report on and to really consolidate on those. It's obviously been quite a quick session. We've gone through quite a lot of information. It is slightly past the time that we said we'd be in here for, but I would love to kind of push out a final poll to you guys, just to get an idea of what you're maybe most excited about when it comes to GA4. So you should see on your screens right now a small poll. Your answer is anonymous, it won't be revealed, but just to kind of get an idea, are you most excited about the fact that there's integrated data from multiple platforms, the idea of, you know, these updated marketing metrics and reporting functions? Are you really excited about the machine learning insights and the optimizations that can come from that? I would love to know. There is one question there in the chat, Freya, that maybe we can address quickly now, and if it needs more detail, then we can definitely jump into an email and send you a bit more. But here we have GA4 completely misses around 30% of our revenue as opposed to our old universal configuration. Have you noticed similar things with either kind of some of our clients or in your experience of the migration over to GA4?
Yeah, so I have. So this is where one of those great questions of kind of looking at that user flow. So if we have a look at Universal Urchin and we have a look at your catalyst, right? This is where you have a look at SEO and you look at direct. This is normally where those anomalies hit through. Is direct means essentially that they've either gone like www.thisisawesome.com, or they essentially have kind of come through through an organical source, and that then tracked through is where we see a lot of discrepancies in terms of your like kind of revenue. And revenue, what I mean by that would be your financial revenue. So them adding items to your cart, and that's where you get your discrepancy from. With that question as well, is what we would need to do is have a look at your old data and the sources where you notice that kind of gap in data. Then have a look at your new flow to then see, say, like essentially, it is from email direct or it's from SEO direct, and do we need to then therefore build a landing page or build a unique kind of environment to track through those metrics and kind of go through that? But this is where you kind of essentially have to like create two user journeys and see where you're missing the kind of baton between each channel and what that means.
Brilliant. Thank you, Freya. I hope that addresses your question. If you need any more information, please do feel free to send us an email. So as mentioned at the beginning, we have recorded this session, so you will be receiving this in your inbox in the next few days, along with a short survey just to see how you felt about the session today. I'm hoping that it's been helpful. We'll also actually, at the beginning of next month, be releasing kind of a GA4 guide, which will basically be a summary of what this session has been today. I know sometimes it's easier to have it kind of in a visual way. For now, I want to thank Freya for sharing all of her wonderful knowledge with us. But more importantly, I'd like to thank everyone who has joined us today. We do hope that you found it to be a really insightful session. Given that I'm in marketing, it would be wrong for me not to tell you where to find us. Obviously, our website, which is seo.viaductgen.com, on our socials, which is Viaduct Generation on both LinkedIn and YouTube, Viaduct_Gen on Twitter, and at Viaduct Gen on Instagram. You can also listen to us if you'd like to. We have a bi-monthly podcast called The Wise Build Bridges that is available on all major streaming platforms and on YouTube. So thank you very much once again. I'm impressed that we managed to make it through so much information in pretty much 30 minutes. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day.